Promises. The following article is useful especially for those of you who has not been involved in event of 1998. Either you were too young or you missed this important event, respectively you did not pay attention to it. At the same time, it can serve also for those who had been involved in this event, but they did not accept the gift offered to people due to various reasons. Or even for those who accepted this gift at that time, but later they ran in different directions and they forgot about this gift. Alternatively, various quarrels occurred among the readers of the Grail message and even among the readers of Eternal Loves. Now we are going to try to bring closer briefly that event in 1998 for the sake of readers and their easier ability to understand consequent coherences. The first volume of Eternal Loves by Mrs. Natalia Delemeny Makedonova was published in 1997 in Slovakia. Later, with great difficulties, but indescribably bravely and successfully, she wrote the second volume and finally even the last, that is, the third volume, where she revealed third prophecy from Fatima, which Church had kept hidden hitherto. Her exceptional personality caused a big fuss in Slovakia and its surroundings. On one hand, she had many supporters, readers who thanks to her books did understand their own purpose in life, together with functioning of eternal God's love, and this filled them with indescribable happiness. On the other hand, the Church proclaimed her as a false prophet and disparaged her behind her back, because her acts were uncomfortable in the eyes of Church. However, publicly, any ecclesiastical dignitary never had the courage to participate in a direct discussion with her. It was obvious that he could not stand a chance against the truth and concrete evidence. Eternal Loves, the first, second, and third volume are actually a shortened version of the Grail message, a word vested in a more modern robe that is easily understandable for today's man. In addition, the new relevant information and prophecies were complemented. The new information is that she explained coming in the clouds logically and in accordance with the eternal God's laws, that is, the fact that extraterrestrial civilizations will participate on this event. The author of the Grail message mentioned these civilizations only briefly, because it was clear that during his former incarnation this event will not happen. Thus, it will be postponed for future, and therefore a more specific information will be left for the new, future fulfillment realized later by a promised person. Finally, Mrs. Makedonova, on her own, recognized and announced her higher spiritual origin and confirmed it with the Bible. As primordial queen, in 1998, she is supposed to give birth to the Son of Man, Emmanuel, who shall become the ruler of the kingdom of the millennium after the final judgment on earth. Many readers of the Grail message disavowed her because they were not able to accept the same truth, although said in a different way and complemented with new information. Slovakia, the chosen nation, was a place for her acts, as she wrote directly. Her mission was closely linked with the work and service of the political leader of that period, respectively a higher spiritual personality who acted inside the body of this political leader at that period. Even though they never met in person, she sent him a letter, and what is essential, both of them acted right and in accordance to their missions. The political leader had to protect Slovakia on material level, while she helped people to wake up spiritually with her book. Moreover, she herself was supposed to be a bridge for the Son of Man, Emmanuel. November 1998 came closer and closer. Although the political leader won the election, he did not get enough votes to govern. As a result, other political parties ruled him out and he was not part of a government anymore. Meanwhile, there was a lot of excitement in Slovakia because, still undetected in a world of matter, intangible pregnancy of Mrs. Natalia had advanced. Finally, this pregnancy should lead towards the birth of Emmanuel, rightly into the world of matter. Some people believed her because they did understand her mission and their spirit had awakened. Some, who were spiritually even more advanced, were able to justify logically this intangible pregnancy in accordance to God's laws, the laws of nature. Therefore, they were aware that these laws were not circumvented in any direction. Others thought that she was a fool or cheater, but none of these opponents did not understand how she was able to claim with such certainty that Emmanuel will be born in that particular month, that is, November. They did not understand how she could keep her confidence with such a calm in regards to this date of birth and how she could be so certain about it. Despite everything, she spread the truth up until the last minute. She brought people in contact with the book's eternal laws and the Grail message. She also announced the future birth of Emmanuel and reasons why this birth must happen. At the same time, these actions of her are also the proof of all her declarations. She repeatedly and publicly did present her declarations on television, radio and during her public appearances. What did happen afterwards? Mrs. Natalia left this world on December the 4th, 1998 as participant of a strange, peculiar car crash near the village named Slovak Lubča. And here, further fragmentation did occur among people, in understanding and misunderstanding of what really has happened at the proclaimed date of birth of Emmanuel, that is, on November the 28th, 1998. The opponents were happy and took this car crash as a proof that she was false prophet and the accident was a punishment. Her supporters became fragmented in their opinions. Some of them left and came into conclusion that the birth did not happen. Then one reader of the Word wrote a book where he tried to clarify all these facts. The book is called The Prophecies in the Light of Truth. He will continue from here with his article. What are the facts that should be known for every critic of the author of Eternal Laws? She is the foremost reason that critics, as well as every Slovak, have now the possibility to get and read the original and pure word of the Grail message. She was the one who stirred a quiet but moody surface of opinions formed by readers of the Word. At her instigation, some people started to look for answers to questions that had not been answered by the Word hitherto known. Moreover, some people, as well as me myself, saw the reason for misunderstanding inside themselves. While in search for those misunderstandings and important information, I personally found out that there are several versions of the Word where majority of those misunderstandings are explained. In addition, the omitted but very important parts of text are complemented within these versions. Therefore, first, only for myself, I personally compiled a new Word, which consisted of all texts of Word hitherto available. The different versions were written in different fonts. This multi-leveled Word opened my eyes and shed light on the events that led to this fact. At the same time, this compiled Word gave answers to the questions which had not been hitherto answered. I used this multi-leveled compilation of a Word in order to persuade the translator of the hitherto known and only available, that is, 3-volume Word, that we must embark together on an important and challenging work, to make the original Word available for everyone and thus fix what was altered. Imagine my surprise when I found out that the author of Eternal Loves did not know about the existence of various versions of the Word, but at the same time she brought precisely those information that were contained only in the Word hitherto unavailable. This fact represented for me a clear evidence that she stands right at the source of living and surely clean water which she let us drink from. Therefore, my belief in her authenticity is no doubtful theory, but my own personal experience of the facts. And there were those facts which decided about that I provided this cleansed Word to everyone else who honestly seek the truth. Therefore, in my case, it was neither theory nor speculation of indolent spirit that decided about my direction, but it was the pure desire for the complete truth that drove me, supported by the hard work on compilation of the Word. I personally wrote the entire compilation on computer, based on the original Word whose translation I received from translator. There exists a written evidence as the veracity of my words. Since many current critics, as well as those from past, take over only opinions of others instead of their own, they have been not and still are not in need for the complete and pure Word. Their spirits are indolent to make an effort for seeking the truth on their own. In doing so, they do not stop themselves from throwing stones at those who just try to open their blind eyes. Many of those who call for tolerance just beget intolerance, mostly coming from their ignorance, but sometimes from their ambition. There is a group of those who reject the author of Eternal Loves just because her promises regarding Emmanuel's birth were not fulfilled as well as some forecasts which she took over from others. All alike those from the group mentioned above forget that mankind has always a free will and a choice between two scenarios, and only mankind itself, based on its own actions, is the one who decides which scenario will be fulfilled. Therefore, each envoy of light formulated his or her promises in accordance with both scenarios, and even he or she did not know in advance how the situation will develop, that is, how mankind will act. And we acted always in a way that we chose the scenario less suitable for us, and thus promises were inclined to the less favorable side. But at the same time, we expected the fulfillment of those promises that were prepared for us only in case we choose the more favorable scenario. Subsequently, the promised events must be postponed to a distant future, because there were none who can be rescued in accordance with the laws. Thus, As critics could find arguments against the author of Eternal Loves, they might as well criticize the author of the Grail Message. At the beginning of his mission, he also considered two scenarios, and foremost the fact that the promises will be fulfilled already during his former incarnation. That also did not happen, either due to our fault only. Likewise, the birth of Emmanuel would have been actual on earth only if mankind would have obeyed the call of light and would have received the word. Only then the following events would have occurred. Our bodies would have changed and became more finer up to the level where Emmanuel was born. This should have been done under altered radiation with the participations of the elemental beings. All this information are available and explained perfectly in the Grail Message. But again, there is one problem. The perfect explanation is available only in the complete and undistorted version of the Grail Message. Since we chose the scenario less favorable, we cannot expect the fulfillment of promises for the favorable scenario. To support what is written above, now follows a few quotes. Quotations from the book Prophecies in the Light of Truth. And now back to the Old Testament and prophecy of Prophet Isaiah. In chapter 66, verse 7 and 8, the prophet says the following. Start of quotation. Before she was in labor, she gave birth. Before her pain came upon her, she delivered a son into the world. Who has heard of such a thing? Who has seen such things? End of quotation. What would be your answer to Isaiah's question? Can you answer him? I think that his contemporaries would hardly be able to find an answer to his question. But we, who know the word of Lord, we should be able to answer his question, and moreover we experienced this event. Son of Man has warned several times that before mankind there always lies two ways, and it is up to us which one we choose. At this point, I would like to incorporate a text which my inner voice dictated me a few days after the primordial queen had left the gross matter of our earth. Dear editors, dear readers, allow me to pass you and your readers the following messages. Those who should understand, they will understand who is the originator of these messages. I hope that you will remain objective and you will publish these messages, which I attach. Those who strive the least of all, the easiest is for them to appoint someone as a false prophet. The truth is so simple that we will all stand in awe when it reveals completely before us. I can only give as much as I get. Start of messages. The Lord called his servant who faithfully fulfilled her role. Her task was to unseal the word of the Lord for many and made his arrival possible. We had the free will till the day of her departure to adopt the soil in our hearts for the sake of the Lord's coming. But we truly failed again, lost the confidence of God, and now we must wait the day of his wrath. Emmanuel, the Son of God, was born. Let us rejoice. He was born in November. Let us be happy. He was born in the sign of Aries. Let us strive now. Only those who survive the great purification will be able to see him. Amen. End of messages. There are always two possibilities when raising a child. If a child obeys, then a first scenario will unfold. If a child disobeys, then a second scenario will unfold. We disobeyed again, therefore a second scenario will unfold. God and His Son knew which scenario we choose. Therefore, Abdurshin predicted already 65 years ago the final events and determined the scenario based on which the events will unfold. Thus, let's study this scenario because only a very short time remains there for us. Abdurshin wrote, "The spirit forms, and even thereby forms in advance the earth name which he must bear in his next life on earth." End of quotation. We can see it also in name Makedonova, where the name Madonna is hidden. I admit that the text written above I could not quite satisfactorily explain to correspond to my own logic. The brain was not satisfied with what I had written, so I started very diligently and tirelessly to seek an answer in the word of Lord, which I recognized at that time as the one and only standard of truth. The biggest problem for me was the following part. He was born in November. He was born in the sign of Aries. Other plumbless part of my worries was whether my inner voice is not a trick of darkness, and therefore I very eagerly looked for an answer within the word of Lord. One night, before going to sleep, I asked for help and advice so that I can publish this text and would not be forced to keep it only for myself. Now imagine what I dreamed at that night. I had a very vivid dream that I will never forget. I came to clean room, freshly whitened. There was a child playing on the bed. It was a boy. Although I clearly can remember his appearance, I am not going to describe it because I do not want to baffle the joy of someone who likes surprises. The boy had a huge willingness to be recorded on the camera. Since I had one with me, I pressed the record button and filmed the child. I was very happy in the morning that I got the answer to my question from previous night. So then I published the text written above together with another text, which I picked up from the Word of Truth. Later one I am going to publish now. End of quotations from the book Prophecies in the Light of Truth. Quotation from the work of Abdurshin, Resonances to the Grail Message, Lecture, Christmas. And such great revelations on earth can never take place other than through a few chosen for the purpose. Remember this always. For the lawfulness in creation cannot be annulled on your account. Therefore do not build up any fanciful pictures about various happenings, which can never be as you imagine them to be. These are unspoken demands which never emanate from genuine conviction, but they are a sign of hidden unbelief and spiritual indolence, which has not absorbed my word of the message in such a manner as it demands to enable it to come to life in the human spirit. End of quotation. Next, continue the quotes from the book Prophecies in the Light of Truth. Scenario number 2. Quotations from the work of Abdurshin, The Grail Message and Resonances to the Grail Message, various lectures. Start of quotation. Above all, the call is directed to womanhood once more. Through their more delicate intuitive perception, womanhood has the ability to distinguish with infallible certainty who belongs to the light. End of quotation. Start of quotation. Through their actions, man can only make the earthly path of God's sent messenger more difficult up to a certain point, forcing him to wander on byways and make detours. However, it will be the will of God that will uprise the Son of Man in the hour of fulfillment. End of quotation. Start of quotation. I will come soon. End of quotation. Start of quotation. Viewed from below upwards, there are the species of gross matter, the species of ethereal matter, the species of animistic substantiality, and the species of spiritual substance as the highest. Each of these species is again divided into many levels. 7. The transitions between them are quite subtle. Man now has a cloak of each species of creation below the spiritual. Each cloak is equivalent to a body. End of quotation. Start of quotation. Primordial spirits and divine beings can incarnate and act at various levels of creation. End of quotation. Start of quotation. It has been prophesied that the foot of the God-sent messenger would not step into the dust of that which has been. The expression dust are inserted in the place of the conception gross matter. End of quotation. Start of quotation. There is nothing on earth which has not already been fashioned beforehand in an even more beautiful and more perfect way by the little elemental beings in medium gross matter. End of quotation. Start of quotation. At the finer levels, the events come into realization beforehand than at our gross matter level. End of quotation. Start of quotation. This is the reason why during the upcoming upheavals on this earth, your earthly bodies will have to change as well, otherwise you can no longer exist. They change with the changing workings of the elementals, under the new ray of the light, evolutionary leap. End of quotation. The Bible, the New Testament, Revelation of John, chapter 12, verse 5 and 6. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was taken up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the desert, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. End of quotation. UFO Magazine number 1995, November. The identification number of the Earth is 108. Ladies and gentlemen, dear readers, long have I been deciding whether to confide in someone with a problem, which so often and for a long time I have bare in my mind. Finally, as you can see, I decided so, although obviously with concerns of a simple man. It all started sometime in year 1986 while watching television travelogue from Tibet, in where I learned that the lucky number of Tibetans is 108. Although the travelogue did not provide an answer why it is so. Since then, I searched wherever I could in order to find out the essence of such counting of Tibetans. I wrote to several editors, even to the acclaimed authority as Mr. Deniken surely is, but I did not receive any answer, and my mind could not rest. Therefore, I was left with no other choice than to try to solve this mystery on my own. Moreover, I experienced an event in the above-mentioned year 1986 that even aroused more my willingness to solve that mystery. It was the first time when I saw the UFO during hunt. Henceforth, I began to study all the texts available, which were related to universe and man. The results of my effort was the formula that I called the formula of life for the planet Earth. The result of this formula is number 108. The formula is simple, and all the variables included in the formula are necessary for creation of life in a form we know here on Earth. The formula is as follows: diameter of Sun over diameter of Earth plus average distance from Earth to Sun over diameter of Sun times 1/2. I am not going to explain further that all these variables are crucial for creation of life on Earth. More competent people than me did it before, and I would have to quote them. Here are the parameters required for inclusion in the above formula. Diameter of Sun 1,391,980 kilometers over diameter of Earth 12,756.28 kilometers plus average distance from Earth to Sun 149,597,920 kilometers over diameter of Sun 1,391,980 kilometers times 1/2 equals 108.29. When we put into formula the parameters of other planets of the solar system, it is obvious that the result is another value. Therefore, we can say that every planet in our solar system has its own unique identification number. For planet Earth, it is the number 108. We could say that the number 108 is the object of our gratitude for the fact that we are here and we are what we are. So, we have the number 108, which is lucky number of Tibetans, and the number 108, which is the result of my formula. Let's assume they are both identical and are not the result of chance or luck. If so, we must ask ourselves where from the Tibetans knew variables needed to calculate the number 108. If they received it as something that is already calculated, then the question is, by whom? We would have to ask even more questions, but I leave it up to each of you alone. I just tried to compare the lucky number of Tibetans with the result of my formula, whereby I believe that it is also my lucky number. Whether it is also your lucky number, I leave it up to you. If we place the lucky number of Tibetans on one side of the equation and the result of my formula on the other side, we can talk about the equation of happiness or equation of life. Dear readers, I wrote to you with the view of bringing some small stone into mosaic of history of ufology. I found my courage to do it so only recently, when I realized what ufology provides to humanity. Allow me to say that in my opinion the ufology gives humanity a much more than today's politics. After all, the main problem of mankind today is the morality. People act differently when you see them, and act differently when you not. You can hear the following saying very often: "Since there is nobody who can see me now." And this is a big mistake. Man still bears within himself the camera, which produces evidence against or for himself. Thus, man bears within himself also the policeman, which upon the given evidence proves you guilty. Finally, man bears within himself the judge, which upon given evidence and his own conviction finds you guilty. The moment when humans realize this and also bring it to life, then moral value of humanity will increase. Mankind lost its morality together with spirituality because of its focus on the matter. The way back to spirituality is now possible again only through matter. And the UFO plays a vital role here. UFO is the subject where matter meets with spirituality and do not exclude each other like it is the case with us, Earthlings. However, if we compare politics and ufology, we can find one more difference. Politics can elevate mankind only materially, while ufology is able to elevate mankind spiritually. I am glad that today there are many who prefer the later one. Magazine like yours can be seen as evidence. Unfortunately, this was written in the years when that freedom of speech and the ardor for the higher spiritual knowledge was at a far higher level than it is today. Today, the situation is such that even these facts are covered up, hidden, and people who are dedicated to it are suppressed and pilloried. Since then, however, I have also reached a certain extension of belief. It is true what is written about ufology, that it can spiritually uplift a person. But there is also the other side of the coin. There are beings, and this is the stumbling block of today, which are on the opposite side and also fly above our heads and have captured and enslaved all our powerful rulers. Whether it is church, politics, economics, or science. We will follow up on this quoted paragraph with another, which is related to the previous one and was also sent to UFO magazine in 1996, volume 4. Once again, I will follow up on my previous article and return back to the topic of the planets of our solar system. I am aware there is no need to appoint them for you, and therefore I focus my attention directly to the issue of planets' name and their genera. Editor's note: all information about names of planets and their genera are derivated from the rules of composition of Slovak language, and we do not know whether it is the same in correlation with other languages. 2 planets have feminine names, 6 planets have masculine names, and 1 planet has a neuter gender name. So, we can find in our solar system 3 genera, such as it is with us, humans. I know that many of you will argue that it must be so, because men are those who gave these names to planets. That is true, but it can be also said that each planet could have a feminine name, since the term planet is feminine. Nevertheless, only Venus and Earth have feminine names. And some of you may say again, it is a coincidence. And coincidence is also the fact that the identification number of Earth and Venus is divisible by 12. And coincidence is also the fact that the term day has a masculine name and night has a feminine name. Eastern cultures recognize 2 principles, and man represents a duality principle. Supposedly, extraterrestrials also say that. But do not always believe the opinions of others, while you can reach the same opinion with introspection. A man lives two lives, one of material nature, the male, daily one, and the other of spiritual nature, the female, nightly one. Nightlife is more emotional with more intuitive perception and is closer to the feminine principle. Due to the fault of man, the nightly, spiritual life has become more distant and was moved to the area of foggy dreaming. The earth, the woman, and the night has become only a foggy area of dreaming separated from real life. The daylight finds humans that are spiritually and emotionally unconscious. The daylight blinds the man. Man is hiding away from light, and the good Mother Earth helps him in doing so. She, Mother Earth, moves away from the light too. Was not the lucky number of Tibetans in their days of happiness strictly equal to number 108? Nowadays, our and their lucky number is already 108.3. Do not we lack precisely those 3/10 to happiness? It is up to each man alone to answer this question. I believe that the formula which was published in UFO magazine number 1995 November applies not only to the planets but also to the solar systems and galaxies. It is a criterion of spiritual level, that is, the intelligence of individual civilizations. The following ratio is valid. The lower identification number, the more advanced civilization. Thank you, Jaroslav Koškar, Podradie. And here I would like to stop for a moment and say that with this formula actually I had already proved exactly the same what the Grail message confirmed me later, and the author of the Eternal Laws claimed the same too. In the past, our Earth circled the track closer to light, which was a sign of a higher spiritual level of humanity. It was also related to the length of life, but also to the way how the Earth was governed, and the extra-planetary communication to which all the old files and texts point. Here, I want also point out that the identification number of the Earth and Venus is divisible by 12. If you read carefully the chapter where Primordial Queen is mentioned, you surely noticed that the number 12 is the number of Primordial Queen. I intentionally draw the attention to this fact because later we will explore it further. Perhaps some reader did not understand where exactly the above-mentioned formula proves the fact that Earth is drifting away from the light. There are 3 variables used in the formula, but only one of them could have changed. It is the distance of the Earth from the Sun. The diameter of the Earth and the Sun have remained apparently constant. Therefore, the distance between the Earth and the Sun is the only one that have extended. Thus, the Earth have moved away from the Sun. Now, I would like to offer you one of my articles published in UFO magazine number 1998 July, which is related to our topic. For me, it is interesting that right after the first night of a personal acquaintance with Mrs. Makedonova and the evening experience with UFO, I had an interesting experience during the night. I woke up around 3 o'clock in the morning and an interesting text came across my mind. I wrote it down immediately so I do not forget it. Later, I sent it to UFO magazine, and here it is. Lord of the Vineyard is coming. Beautiful and fertile vineyards we got to rental. We were instructed how to cultivate this vineyard in order to be beneficial to its master and also to our own benefit. We sealed all this with loves in contract. However, We badly farmed the vineyard. We did not send the rental fee to the Lord, and we ignored His laws. When the Lord sent His messengers to collect a rental fee, we have decried and stoned His messengers. He sent us His Son for our salvation and remedy. We insulted and nailed Him to a cross. Even so, He had mercy with us and came to us to recall and explain the laws and the contract. For our salvation, He hit darkness harshly with a lesson. However, we did not recognize Him, and we did not care about His laws and the contract. Rental period is coming to the end. Eternally valid laws remind themselves to us again. Let's use the last chance to salvation and respect His messengers, because they are proclaiming His coming. He is coming to purify the vineyard, borrowers to condemn, and establish the new farmers. Jaroslav Koškár, Podradie. I would like to briefly return one more time to the topic of lucky number 108 and its divisibility 12. I have also mentioned when we substitute into the formula the values of other planets, we get always another number. Venus and her lucky number 96 should be also an object of our interest. Likewise with our planet, her number is straight no more, but rounded is 96.37. We can see that also her value has increased about the same amount as the value of our Earth. However, the essential part is that the number of Venus is lower than the number of Earth. So, both numbers are divisible by 12. This principle is valid only for these two planets, and it cannot be applied with the remaining planets of our solar system. If we divide the number of Earth, 108, by 12, we get a number 9. If we divide number of Venus, 96, by 12 again, we get a number 8. Please note that combination of numbers 9 and 8 is year 1998. By adding and multiplying these two numbers, you get numbers 17 and 7. Now it should be added that the primordial queen was born on the 17th day of the 7th month, that is, July. These are the facts and not some conspiracy theory. Clearly we see that the number of Venus is lower than the number of Earth, of which we can conclude that Venusians are closer to the light than Earthlings, and therefore they are more spiritual. And some may see even something else maybe. Some of you may smile now and say that there is no life on Venus. But to these smart guys, I can only recommend to fly to Venus and see it with own eyes. Life has taught me that there is no need to do precipitous closures, and everyone should rely on one's own feelings and not receive blindly everything from others. Therefore, do not take also my words completely as they would be yours own. Take them only as a certain way of opponency against those who are already convinced that there is no life on Venus. Why should not we believe Mr. Adamski and his Orton? Let's remind ourselves the quote from the Bible, the New Testament, Revelation of John, chapter 12, verse 5 and 6. And she gave birth to a son, a male child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was taken up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the desert, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. End of quotation. Desert has been always considered a hot landscape without life. As you know, planet Venus is considered by Earthlings as such place. I leave it to your consideration whether it is a coincidence. In regards to those 1260 days, I will get to it later. The birth of the Son of Man on earth falls necessarily into sign of Aries. End of quotation. Again, we have here one coincidence. Imagine that in November 1998, the Sun was in sign of Aries for the Venusians. I am not going to comment it further at this point, but I promise I will get to it later too. Someone should now be asked a question like, did Son of Man mention Venus at some point? You may be surprised, but yes. Furthermore, I was surprised even by something else. I found the mention about Venus only in a Czech edition of the Resonances to the Grail message. In Slovak version of this book you will not find the texts I am going to mention below. It is because the whole lecture is missing together with the text mentioned below as its part. The title of the missing lecture is Easter 1933. Start of quotation. The day star, morning star of the promised kingdom of the millennium is rising up. It has now shined to all nations with the help of those richly endowed who wear a cross of truth as a sign of their conviction. End of quotation. Everyone whose hobby is the universe or at least sky observation, he or she knows that Venus as the inner planet, between the Earth and the Sun, can be visible either in the evening sky. At this time Venus shines right after the sunset and we call her evening star, or shines before sunrise and then we call her morning star. End of quotes from book Prophecies in the Light of Truth. Then there is another group that does not want to hear anything about extraterrestrials, or if they do not want to acknowledge that there are some extraterrestrials who are more advanced spiritually. But for those I personally have to mention that extraterrestrials were exactly those who brought me to the Grail message. And there are others like me, and were even supposed to be many others, if the dark did not distort and alter this channel of light for humanity. Again, I will use facts from our history in order to support this argument. Now continue another quote from book Prophecies in the Light of Truth. We will continue further in order to touch the issue of communication with another hierarchy. During my frequent nocturnal wanderings in nature, I often saw flying objects which were beyond the horizon of our thinking. This hierarchy established a channel of communication with me. They drew my attention to a number of important facts. Precisely through this channel I was alerted to the book, which gives a complete picture of God and His work, as well as the laws that govern His creation. Paragraph number 62 of the Space Connection says this. Start of quotation. Old Testament was the first book. New Testament was the second book, and the third book is in the process of being written for you. End of quotation. I only add that this was written in the 60s, and the third book for us has already been written. I mention this text for the sake of one very important reason. I want to prove that relevant information are constantly being hid in front of us. The highlighted paragraph number 62 of Space Connections was published also here in Slovakia in a form of book in several editions. I personally have 3 editions of this message from Brothers from Universe. Each edition differs from each other in content and in one very important paragraph particularly, in number 62, which is the most important one. The oldest version of this book that was published under its title Gift of the Spirit in Slovakia in 1994 in the publishing house called Brieždenie. In English, Dawn. However, this text comes from a much older time. In this version, the paragraph number 62 has form as follows. Start of quotation. Old Testament was the first book, New Testament was the second book, and the third book is in the process of being written for you. End of quotation. And truly, this third book was written for us. It was a book written by the Son of Man, and therefore, brothers from universe placed this book between the two that humanity received from God. In the second edition of this book, that was published in 1996 in the publishing house called Ecoconsult, the paragraph number 62 came with already modified text as follows. Start of quotation. Old Testament was the first book, New Testament was the second book, and the third book will be written for you. End of quotation. However, the same message that appears today on the internet does not mention the third book at all. Is not it strange? In 1994, the book was in the process of being written for us. In 1996, there was a promise for us that the book will be written, and now there is no mention about the book. But the most interesting part of this problem is the fact that I have been reading this promised third book since 1992. End of quotations from book Prophecies in the Light of Truth. Now I shall quote directly from the Grail message, which includes the sentence used by an extraterrestrials in order to call our attention to the third important book for humanity. It is precisely that sentence that was also removed from the censored Grail message, so we do not want be looking for this book and do not want be able to find an explanation of God's laws. Here it is. Quotation from the work of Abdrushyn, The Grail Message, Lecture, Lord's Prayer. His will firmly anchored as it is in creation. Man utters a lie with every word when he dares to say this prayer. He stands before his God as a hypocrite and a fraud. He keeps on adding new sins to the old ones, and when he breaks down ethereally, as he must under this burden in the beyond, he even feels he ought to be pitied. There have already been 3 opportunities for man to recognize correctly the will of God. Once through Moses, who had been enlightened for that purpose. The second time through the Son of God, Jesus himself, who bore the truth within himself. And now for the third and the last time in the Grail message, which again has been drawn directly from the truth. End of quotation. Thus one could go on and provides the evidence of truth, but it is useless, because each group will still defend only what they gained from only their available information. And this is the way how hatred arises. Followers of the author of the eternal laws cannot be criticized of intolerance because they do not judge readers who read only the Grail message, since the author of the eternal laws led them to the Grail message. This was her main intention, and foremost to bring people to Emmanuel, who comes to fulfill the old, but also the new promises. After all, the kingdom of the millennium is recognized also by those readers of the Grail message who refuse eternal laws. Therefore, these readers recognize Emmanuel as the king of that kingdom, but somehow they all forget the one important, little thing which the author of the Eternal Laws has updated, namely, that this king must still come into the gross matter in accordance with the laws of God, that is, that this king must incarnate. There are many readers of the Grail message who certainly do not believe in the coming of the king of the millennial kingdom, or even in the realm itself. But it is precisely the social structure of the future, universal social structure, that the king himself must establish. And he shall come into the gross matter in accordance with the gods' natural laws that do not want to be, even upon his arrival, circumvented in any way. But many will not understand his arrival, since they declined last lessons or messages. After finishing and publishing the book Prophecies in the Light of Truth, there was a schism among some readers of Eternal Laws, not only of opinions, but in some cases even attacks has occurred, together with jealousy and vanity. In particular, one Mr. and others did not agree with an explanation that the birth of Emmanuel, due to our failure, did not happen on Earth, but somewhere else, on Venus. They failed to understand that the author of the book Prophecies in the Light of Truth does not degrade in any way Mrs. Natalia. On contrary, it was she who contributed to the act of birth on Venus, the finer covering of her body. This Mr. the opponent claimed, on the advice of some lady, that the birth took place in ethereal matter. This same Mr. then also caused separation between the author of Prophecies in the Light of Truth and another Mr. who also was not able to accept the birth on Venus. However, he was active in numerology, and since then and even nowadays he includes Venus into his calculations. So, the essential part is that he provides with his calculations more and more evidence of where the birth truly happened. An old weakness of humanity, together with the actual one that we have spoken of here on our website, can be seen on this example. Besides, this serves as a proof that we want our neighbors to be exactly as we are, and when they do not want to surrender, we get offended and angry, and that is a big mistake. This topic is also related to the most recent experience. On a website of certain Mr. of Czech nationality, which seeks to spread the Grail message but rejects eternal laws, a post was added in the following sense. At the request of readers, he offers for download the uncensored version of the Grail message in Slovak language. We downloaded it and joyfully found out that it is truly the uncensored version, so well known for us. We wrote in the discussion under his post that readers have the possibility to download this uncensored version of the Grail message in Slovak language also from the webpage www.absolutetruth.sk. In addition, also the uncensored version of the resonances to the Grail message in Slovak language is also available for download at the same page for all those who are interested in. It was an offer for all those who want to have the complete, uncensored version of the work of Abdushin in Slovak language. Our comment has been deleted within a few minutes by this Mr., and he also has disabled us to contribute with other comments in the discussion on his webpage. The next day, he added on his webpage a new post where he slandered followers of Eternal Laws, together with a quote from a text which was written by Mr. Herman Wang, a person within a close circuit of Abdushin. The quote was about Slovaks and warnings regarding their weaknesses. But select only part of the text that fits a certain purpose is irresponsible if we exclude at the same time other important facts that are linked to other happenings experienced through some events. And in this case, it did happen. Now we are going to complement the information mentioned above with another text from the same source, that is, written by the same person, Mr. Herman Weng. This addition proves the information about womanly nation, nation of Venus. This fact cannot be denied, which was conferred by the already lived through events. The act of arrival of each emissary from the light into the matter is possible only with the participation of the female kind, namely the Venus femininity, and therefore a nation must conform to this principle. And so it was. The new facts remain often unknown for the majority, and therefore the necessary logical connections are getting lost. Thus, doubts and condemnation occur even among those where understanding should reside. Herman Weng about Slovakia. The nature of these people, of course, where individuals have differences, reflects something from the rivers and their waters, which intensively stream and flow down from mountain peaks to valleys. Slovak nation is pretty much the same, fierce, passionate and lively, often stormy and almost devastating as those mountain waters. But generally, its nature is mild, because it is a nation of Venus, which is the main star of the earth. This means a womanly nation. A female element has a strong influence. Since this element is more pure than everywhere else, the effect is calming and educational. But too much of unpredictability can also be found in the nature of these people. They are peaceful, yet always willing to take a fight. They can easily blaze out and are enthusiastic by strong arbitrary behavior. Homogeneity of individual personalities is significant. Therefore, a mutual understanding which reflects the homogeneity is burdened by the fact that each individual professes its own rightfulness. Eventually, however, all misunderstandings grow into, such as waters in Slovakia rush away from the Danube, into one and the same method of effort in pure heights of life. Unknowingly, they all are waiting for their leader as a human herd, which needs the leader and which they are willing to follow. God sent leaders on earth for human tribes, which lived in mutual separation in the very beginning of the human race. The equilateral cross of justice, love and purity did illuminate also paths of these tribes. And this symbol is still anchored in the title, in the name Slovakia, and name is like Amen, which means, so be it. Now comes the time that brings the end, which is also the beginning. The time in which all human destinies must conclude in the circle within the large event, when the end is subordinated to beginning, and when the God-sent leader dwelt on earth, and later was eliminated by Lucifer's sent leader, just because mankind failed. The chosen German nation. Precisely in time like this, nations such as Slovaks can stand as an example for many other nations. They do not want to lead, but they want to be led, contrary to Czechs, who have, for example, a strong desire for power. The proof for this statement is the fact that Slovaks let themselves to be misled by the leader, or rather said seducer, against the true feelings of the majority of the nation. Love is the essence of Slovakia's heartbeat, but love for the country and purely earthly matters must be transformed in this nation. Transformed into the love towards the spiritual. Love fills the entire nation. Love is everything for this nation. This nation fights for its love, and only through love you can come in closeness with this nation. However, a great danger surrounds this nation. South of the Slovak nation is a nation that falls under the influence of dark loves, and at north is the night. Thus, Slovaks, proud to their mountain origin and their peculiarities, must fight strongly for free expression of their will. Slovak nation has always been unfree and has become easy prey for unscrupulous and astute neighbors. And precisely this fight will become the great help in the next fight, the correct one, the fight for the spiritual freedom. At the same time, this will be also the great help for transformation of its nation love towards the divine, towards the truth. Many souls in this nation are prepared to embrace all that is great, noble and beautiful. Slovak man is always excited about big things. It is anchored within its hard nature. This nation loves calmness and peace, and yet it is a nation of tough warriors. Love is the symbol of this nation, as its land is enriched with love. Love is the sun for this nation, and only through love you can come in closeness with this nation. Otherwise, the nation is full of resistance. There are many treasures that lies within the souls of Slovak people. Treasures that are going to be uplifted, same as treasures in the Slovak mountains. Slovakia with its shape recalls a chrysalis that is turning into a butterfly. End of quotation. The last sentence is very eloquent, because a chrysalis that is turning into a butterfly, it says something and certainly means something. Those who try to advise the Slovaks should on contrary ask themselves and think if they alone are not those seducers who act only out of desire for power. Slovaks already have the cleansed word of Lord in their native language. Moreover, we can confidently say, this cleansed word is in a quality that is lacking everywhere else, because individual lectures are arranged in chronological order, that is, as the Lord himself lectured. On contrary, those who try to advise, they have all the lectures as well, but chronologically disordered, and therefore to understand the exact context of such arrangement is impossible. Same as is impossible to know a man from his curriculum vitae where particular events are disordered too. And Slovaks often look for the pure word at those who do not have it, whereby the most perfect form of the word is available for them in their homeland. Therefore, Slovaks should not seek the advice and guidance at the neighbors, because they have the most up-to-date in their homeland. However, the Jesus himself has taught us already, no man is a prophet at home. Therefore, let us again take an advice from the above written, that there is no need to interfere in any way against the free will into beliefs of others. It is because these various beliefs originate from a different maturity of each individual. Although many individuals speak loudly, the truth does not need to be on their side. Let ourselves be tolerant towards them, and let them walk their own way, whereby you must be able to defend your way if the others try to condemn your way, but especially to condemn those who walk on this way. Mrs. Makedonova has done as much for the truth and word and its spreading as none of her critics ever did. Moreover, she has brought on the altar of the truth a sacrifice of such scale that critics also cannot bring. And the sense of jealousy and inferiority irritate the most those critics. After the crucifixion of Jesus, Jews were also convinced that he could not be the Son of the God in regards to the way his life ended. We witnessed the same happening even with the Son of Man, but nobody has taken a lesson from it. On the contrary, it becomes a stone which is thrown down on the followers of the truth. All those who were supposed to recognize the new one by now, but they did not, are exactly those who now lift this stone the most often in order to cover up their own guilt. Their defense is only the old one, toward which they were only brought by someone else as disobedient or unconscious children. These words may sound a little harsh, but actually they are soft towards those who offend us with their own words. We do not address nobody directly, and we only respond to those who consider us as dogmatists. But the dogmatist is exactly that man who stands to what is old. Therefore, people like this should think about it. Quotation from the work of Abdrushin, The Grail Message, Answers to Questions. The one touched by the truth is absolutely obliged to stand up for the truth, otherwise he or she is not worthy of the gift of enlightenment. He or she is not supposed to argue, and is not supposed to impose his or her own belief to the others. On the contrary, he or she should let all others to walk on their own way peacefully. But at the same time, he or she must not allow the others to derail him or her from his or her path. What he or she applies in contact with others, he or she has the right to demand that the same would be applied also to him or her. If he or she makes a servant in front of the others, then he or she does deserve nothing less but the fact that the gift will be removed away from him or her.